Hello everyone. I want to discuss this affidavit that I had acquired through Senator Jagreg's office. This is mostly about Thomas Aaron Clark, not Brian Chabot. I don't know Brian Chabot. I've never met him in person. And Thomas on New Hampshire Insider alleges that I was involved with this militia group, which would have been impossible because I was in high school when the event occurred without a license. But I thought it originally had nothing to do with me, at least not with the direct event. And none of the people like Bitsy McCrae, I don't think I know him. Brian Chabot, Eldon Brooks, none of these people knew Emily Fortner, Ken Doucette. At the time when I met Thomas Clark, I had never known any of these people. But because of his stalking, his rape and everything, when I had after acquired this affidavit, I had gotten suspicious of his testimony not being truthful or accurate. But this is basically proof that Thomas has been used as an informant at the high government level. This was a military CID case office. This was not anything to do with me originally. Until much later recently that I had found out that Brian Chabot, I guess, could be a relative to a girl I knew in grade school by the name of Shannon Healy. But other than that, so this is, I now know, is the pre-op to Oath Keepers. And I did know a Bill and Deborah Rhodes who used the Lord's Place. It was a kind of a loose meat church that different people from different denominations met. They were more into accusing people of witchcraft and all of that. And of course, at that time, I was just out of high school. I had been raised in a Christian family, so I was not a witch. I did know a witch by the name of Tony Bashaw, who I would later find out was impersonating me as a prostitute online. I met her once at the Salvation Army shelter in New Hampshire, right after my cousin Livy Dragon, or Dragon, D-R-A-G-O-N, I guess you could say, but they pronounce it Dragon, came down to drop off some items for me. But I never saw that girl again, and so I had no idea that she was doing this. So this is probably some kind of loose-knit ring that I didn't know about. So none of these people I knew. I never got curious as far as to who was involved. It did end up in my daughter's file. There is a Christopher Zimmerman on here. I don't quite, that's Thomas's signature. I did go to high school with a teacher with a last name Zimmerman, so maybe they're relatives. But other than that, that's pretty much it. But this is just to establish that there is a higher level connection with this Thomas Aaron Clark. And of course, with my DeRose & Associates case, it was out of that Lord's Place too that I would get that job or be offered it with some other people that were going there. But it mentions in this affidavit Thomas went to the Secret Service because they were supposedly planning on to assassinate. Well, Thomas's original story was Robert Dole. Of course, if he wanted to flip it to his advantage, he would say it was Clinton. So this is pretty much there's never any evidence of that, and it turns out it was just probably a pre-op. But it was on a militia watchdog site, a public record, and it was only Thomas that claimed it was a classified document. I did try to obtain, I guess, military CID contact with it, but Thomas didn't want to cooperate. And a couple other senators, I did write about it, Charlie Bass, and also Sununu Jr. Knew about it. None of them ever said anything about me having it as being classified, so I figured that it was a New Hampshire watchdog, and Thomas is full of crap about a lot of it. But it was Timothy Strong, Thomas's uncle, who did work with Mike Scheuer, and that's in a two series, Glenn Beck scenario, where it's called Bubba Militia, or whatever they call it, Operation Bubba or whatever, in this affidavit. So I guess that's what this is. So there's some evidence of that. Not only in the Kenton Giuliano case that Thomas was indeed used as an informant. And it seems to me that he was likely involved in racketeering cases for these people, which is should be illegal. But none of the occult organizations that later show up in New Hampshire as cider I knew anything about. Like Temple Set, I had never heard of them. It's true, when I was forced to be with Thomas, I had nowhere to go, and I had just worked at New England Call Center, which is under the Consulate of New Zealand's agent. Oh God, what is his name? From New Zealand, Simon. And I think the president of the company is someone by the name of Zerby out in Pennsylvania. But they did handle calls with the Secret Service, I guess. I thought it was kind of odd or questionable, but I didn't think anything much of it after that. And like I said, I didn't know that Chabot would be related to Healy, because I never stayed close to Shannon Healy, even though I knew in grade school and attended the same church that we went to. But growing up in one of the churches called Capital City Baptist, but it wasn't anything close, so I wouldn't have kept track of that. I think she's also related to the Bulios, too. But anyway, but we did also go to Toby School at one time, which is a state school, and Edward Imhoff was the staff there, so I also think that he's probably behind some of this. But the Ordo Templi Orientis, I never knew anything about it, and basically I had nowhere to go, so Thomas offered me a caretaker position. I never got paid. Instead, I got forced into a situation with him. His mom, Brenda, lied and said, "Oh well, yeah, you can do that," and she then came back and dumped us out on the street. But Thomas tried to initiate me into this stuff, and then I didn't really know anything about it. I had a brief curiosity. I never stuck with me, really, or anything like that. But John Paul Paroli, I wouldn't meet until like 2010, after Thomas and the Taylor Nilrams had my daughter kidnapped with the probate papers. And Thomas never really got any informed consent, so pretty much I got forced into some kind of PSYOP ring without getting any pay, so that's peonage, so I will probably file. And since they're bent on trying to kill me, previous videos up there, I have a serious condition. I seem to have contracted wolf trait form after a Eugene Gray, who found out Thomas's posts threatening, yelling, and screaming at me an infidel task force. I guess they're mad about it. Both sides are mad with Capers and Temple Set and all that. And I don't even know Michael Aquino at all. I did try to contact the guy to straighten this out. I didn't find very good information about it, but a lot of it wasn't that verifiable. It was John Paul Paroli who admitted to having my daughter taken with those fraudulent guardianship papers. And then I would find out later on that my half-brother, Corey, knew John Paul Paroli. I guess knew Thomas, too. I guess they're cousins. I didn't even know that. So I guess she had an accident there, but I wasn't the one that knew anything of that, and it was done deliberately to me. So that's what these people do in these kinds of organizations. They try to initiate this stuff, don't tell you what it's about. And if you don't really know anything about it and you have a curiosity, they pretty much make your life miserable. If you don't want anything to do with them. And of course, I didn't know Paroli's name. I knew it as a Damon Magus or whatever. But other than after, being clear of him, and actually after the night that he kept waking me up for sex, and I kept telling him no, he kept sleep depriving me, knowing I had nowhere to go. I couldn't do much about it because it was my word against his, but he didn't really even want to admit that my daughter was his, so he didn't want to pay child support, so got plenty of emails to back that up, and that's pretty much it. This is the real America. You don't have any rights anymore for anything. I'm being denied medical care for the wolf tapeworm. Like I said, Eugene Gray deliberately let his infected dog shit on my lawn, and so had me infected on purpose, I think. Maybe not. It could have been a freak accident. Of course, I did get my stomach scratched. And these hospitals are deliberately denying me medical care this current time. And it is a life-threatening condition without treatment. It is usually 75% fatal in humans. So I'm trying to get all this done. But there's no justice in the United States, even after you turn in people for terrorism, whether domestic, foreign, or otherwise. But it's not right. My whole life gets destroyed because of this one person that I know very briefly in my life. So, like I said, I had met him at Hawaiian Isle, and also right after my grandmother had her stroke. He had claimed to be from San Diego, so I had no idea that he had any connection to my half-brother. And all my siblings, we were all split up, all 6 of us, to different families. And so there is some evidence that the United States government pretty much trafficked our whole family into some kind of slavery ring. And I consider that to be a form of genocide, especially when they take my daughter. Of course, there could be other reasons for it, but you also have peonage involved in this.